Hello, and welcome to Mastering System Center Operations Manager 2016, Section 8, which is all about console delegation. I'm Stephen Hohman. With video 8.1, we're going to discuss some delegation concepts. I always like to build a foundation on why you're doing something, and delegation is no different than most other things in Operations Manager. So in this video, we're going to take a look at reasons why you would want to delegate console access. Hopefully you have a reason for wanting to do this. However, there should be reasons why you would not want certain teams to have access to certain consoles as well. And then two primary delegation scopes to consider. There's a variety out there, but really, I think 80 to 90% of our delegation is going to fall under these two scopes, so we'll focus on those. So the first question is, why do we want to delegate access? Operations Manager has a lot of information. I don't think that's a secret to anyone that's gotten this far into the class. In fact, some may say that there's too much information or a lot of noise. It may be prudent to delegate access to certain areas for certain people. So, for example, we might want to let our non-technical staff see dashboards, but we don't want them to see alerts. Sometimes when they see alerts, they get nervous, they ask questions, and you have no time left in your day. We might want to grant access to application stakeholders, but limit them to the applications that they're responsible for or that they have an interest in. We may want to delegate access to management. And we may want to restrict the abilities of certain groups, the abilities to run tasks, for example. So perhaps more of our support personnel can run tasks, but in the same dashboards, our non-technical staff cannot run tasks. When to not delegate access? Well, delegation may not be the best way to present information, especially if there's not a need to be able to launch tasks. So consider this. What about your SharePoint dashboards? If you've built those, then why would you need your stakeholders to be in the Operations Manager console? The Operations Manager console can be a little more daunting than a simple SharePoint web part, and unless that person needs to launch a task, they may very well not need the console. If you're managing the delegation and the management of that becomes too burdensome, okay? If you've got down to the point where you have this infinitely granular process of delegation, you've probably gone too far and you need to reel it back a little bit and take a look at why you're in there delegating. Really, what I would prefer to do is some SharePoint dashboards, but I can't run tasks from those. So I would caution the Operations Manager administrator in delegation and say, don't do too much, because once you give it, there's an addiction to it. You're going to spend your days with delegated console access and say, well, I don't want to see this or I do want to see that. It's very burdensome. So the two primary delegation scopes based on those discussions would be your limited view for non-technical staff. So the scope's limited to certain management packs. They have no task abilities. It's really a view only. And again, this is where I'm going to say probably the best place to do this is in SharePoint, okay? Because then they just see what you want them to see. The limited view technical staff is really the more appropriate use of delegation. And that's where the scope can be limited to certain management packs again, but you can grant the ability to run tasks and even auto-resolve their own issues as they pop up. So that's where I would say most of the delegation would happen. So in summary, before starting the process of delegation, it's important to know why you need it. Why do you have to delegate access to the Operations Manager console? Is it to limit visibility, grant the ability to run tasks, or perhaps both? Like most things in Operations Manager, planning your delegation in advance is very helpful. So it takes the information that we've discussed here and try to apply that to an action plan on where you want to delegate access.